Good day. I'm here with Susan Albin, 2010 Informs President. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. Could you start by maybe telling us a little bit about yourself, your presidency year, and what you're up to these days?
Well, there's a certain symmetry to my life. I was born in 1950. I was Informs president in 2010, and now it is 2020. So it seems that I really stick to these landmark years for big events. I'm a professor at Rutgers. Um, Most of my research life has been devoted to quality engineering, in particular, process monitoring and control. I like working in factories. I love working with data. And my whole field has really transformed itself from, a clipboard and a small measuring device to gigantic big data and an outpouring, a tsunami of data coming from whether it's a service system or a production system. So there have been fabulous changes in my research career. At the moment, my total interest has to do with pedagogy. I am interested in doing a better job in teaching. The two elements that I have focused on at Rutgers, and it was supposed to also be in Brazil this summer, but that didn't work out, obviously, with COVID. Active learning and the effective use of technology in teaching. So this is an interest that started many years ago. I did a sabbatical in South Africa to introduce a program in quality and reliability engineering in South Africa shortly after the end of apartheid. In my university at Rutgers, which is a very big school with some 70,000 students, it was a university-wide program of integrating technology into our teaching. And I continue to be devoted to this and try to persuade people who may or may not even be teachers to don't sit there and talk like I'm doing now, but to keep the audience active. So in this format, I don't think I can give you iClicker questions or polling questions or little activities or send Anne and Kara off into a break room to discuss and come back to me. But I'm totally against what I'm doing now.
Well, it sounds like you've had a very interesting career path. Thinking back to 2010, can you tell us what the dynamics were around OR, MS, and analytics at that time?
Absolutely, and with great delight. With ORSA and TIMS, which some people may not remember, and I certainly remember, I started off in ORSA, there's always been this little tension in our community between the more mathematical side and the more business side. And somewhere, I don't know where, the engineering side, it's multivariate, multi-sides. I was on the board when the big decision was made to join ORSA and TIMS. And at the time, despite the fact I was a board member, I didn't even realize they were separate. And some old timers, this was like the equivalent of a divorce and a remarriage or something. I mean, it was a big deal. And I didn't know they were separate. So this pervades our community all the time, now, then. But the absolute most important thing that happened during my presidency is Ann Robinson and Jack Levis introduced us all to analytics and did a huge amount of work with consulting firms and with persuasion to encourage everyone to embrace analytics. It was shortly after, or not shortly, but it was after competing with analytics had come out and so on, and it saved Informs, period. We had made all our money with publications, really, and with open access and all different ways to access material, written material. That was over. So it was really as they say now, an existential threat. I mean, would it survive? And here, this fabulous idea, backed up with tons of work and numbers and convincing evidence and so on, from Anne and Jack about analytics. And of course, informs we're everybody's got an opinion, and we're actually, to my surprise, a very conservative bunch. Everybody's looking at the worst case scenario, but somehow we got everybody on board, and it was the best thing we ever did. There are 2 or 3 elements of it, I think, that really saved Informs and really created an enthusiasm for this concept of embracing analytics along with operations research. So one was that you could get a certificate in it that was offered by Informs, and that's no small feat to create such a thing. There was a huge amount of work following the year I was president to make such a certification. And the other great thing was to really expand the spring meeting into a celebration of what we actually do, not what we could do in a theory about so on, but what actually is happening out there. And the quality of the talks is a whole different level from our fall meeting, which is, like a carnival gathering. And it's quite wonderful. I haven't missed one in many years, nor will I miss this online one. But the spring meeting is something terrific. And I've been involved with Edelman judging, which this has made me like bubble over with enthusiasm for what we can bring to the world, what we can do to make the world a better, more efficient, fairer, everything positive place. So there's a big Edelman event, and all this has arisen from the great work that Anna and Jack did.
Well, thank you for the very kind words. Certainly you set the foundation, and it wouldn't have been possible without your support. When you think of that year or your time as president, what are you most proud of accomplishing during your tenure?
Getting everyone on board. Absolutely.
Yes.
So there was a lot of talk about strategic planning, and I've been involved in strategic planning in my university and in Informs and in various other venues, my department. And basically most of the time I'm saying, I don't get it. What is strategic planning? And I really did learn what it is from Informs. I mean, this has been the story of my life. I am paid by Rutgers, but I learn more than the students. And one of the things, because I work as a professor, that I learned all about, and I learned from Informs, is strategic planning, and that it's a process, and you got to follow the steps. And I have to say that I learned how to follow those steps it Informs. And for much larger scale strategic planning, for example, at a university, it's the same steps, but people often get sidetracked because they try to do, 1,000 things. A strategic plan has, yes, of course we're going to teach the students. Of course we're going to feed them. We're going to house them. We're going to do everything that we're supposed to do, but we're going to focus on 2 or 3 things, in addition to doing very well with all these other things. And so this is an invaluable lesson for my own personal strategic planning in life, for organizations, for everything. And what I really wish is that either in high school or at the university level, there were certain things that every young person should know. One of them should be the basics of financial life, like how interest works and how to manage your small amount of money, and how expensive it is to run up a credit card debt. And the other thing they should know is the personal version, at least, of strategic planning. Of course, you're going to go to school, you're going to study, you're going to do this, but really, what do you have in mind to really give a special effort to, whether it's your physical fitness or your wardrobe or your career, whatever it is. And you can always change it, so it's okay. I mean, but if you have it in mind, that's really a key.
All right, here's the hard one, Susan. Where do you think Informs and the profession in general are headed in the next 25 years? And if you have one piece of advice for how to get us there, what would it be?
Okay, the transition we're facing. Here's the thing. When I was president, the thing was, we're going to go bankrupt because publications don't operate the way they used to. It's something new. I think that something new in our field is the enormous availability of data. And really, statistics and managing data and cleaning data and all kinds of data skills need to be much more incorporated. My background, I had the best PhD advisor in the universe, which is Ward Witt from Columbia University. And the focus was on queuing. And those were the days where there was no online data flowing in constantly. We were looking mostly at steady state conditions. Occasionally we were looking at initial conditions given a starting point, but it wasn't like it is now. We're just huge amounts of data are available every minute, like for example at a call center or so on. And this needs to be embraced much more than it is. I would say OR programs, in addition to the mathematical skills, need strong skills in computing and in data handling. So I think that will be helpful. But we still have, the tension between the math people and the other people. And in general, informers are not reluctant to, take the most pessimistic view and say, if you do that, something terrible will happen. But I think we can overcome that.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for joining us today and for all your kind words. And we look forward to the next 25 years.
Thank you.